This past month has been exciting. It's been a real transition into spring. We've had some of the early bird migrants return, some amphibians breeding, and we're noticing hair all over the sanctuary from mammals shedding into their spring jackets. A few herbaceous plants have started leafing out, such as the skunk cabbage and wild leeks, but the trees have still not budded yet. However, it won't be long until they do, and we'll be getting our 700 trees to plant soon, so we've been preparing for that. We've also been working on a few other spring projects like trail maintenance, and we had our Earth Day walk, which over 40 people showed up for. Anyway, everybody's excited about the arrival of our long-awaited spring. A large pile of rablats fell into our hands. It's an odd thing to acquire, but here's how it happened. When the university was done with these rats for their experiments, they were euthanized, then given to a local zoo to feed their animals. Once the zoo had their freezers full, they gave the remainder to a local wildlife rehabilitator, and once she filled her freezer up, the remainder were given to us. We put them in a pile as an easy food source for the local scavengers. This is the Fisher, New York's largest weasel since the wolverine has been extirpated. Fishers do have a well-earned reputation for being vicious predators, but like other members of the weasel family, they are actually omnivores. They also eat berries and nuts, and will scavenge carrion. The Fishers returned every night and sometimes during the day, multiple times until the pile was gone. We rarely see them, but we know that there are at least a few Fishers on the sanctuary because of the tracks, and we can see clearly different sizes of Fisher. Just by looking at this footage, I can't tell how many individuals were coming, but there are at least two. As with the fisher, we know we have a healthy population of fox because of the tracks we see around the sanctuary. We also know we have both species of fox native to our region, the red and the gray. Also similar to the fisher, foxes are omnivores. They have quite a varied diet. They certainly did appreciate this pile of rats, though. They came both day and night grabbing rats, sometimes eating them then, sometimes saving them for later. Often, as we're walking down the trail, we'll notice a dead animal, a small rodent or snake or something. These are most often sign of fox. They hunt all night long, and as they're in the process, they don't always eat right away. They'll set it aside and come back for it later. And every now and then, they forget about one. Interestingly, we can see the fox in these videos picking up a rat and setting it aside for later, just like as if they were hunting. And these two foxes act as if they know each other. Probably they're a mating pair. Our region's earliest breeding amphibians came out this month, mostly the spring peepers and wood frogs, which can be heard peeping and clucking in this clip, and the yellow-spotted salamanders. It started earlier this month, after the first thaw. Some eager yellow-spotteds came out to breed a bit prematurely. They ended up paying the ultimate price when the mercury plummeted. The same thing happened last year, but at the time we suspected it was a virus. But after some more information, rumination, seeing a near repeat of last year, I now believe that it's temperatures freezing them to death. A week and a half later, however, there was a huge run. There were some wood frogs and about a dozen yellow-spotted salamanders in that same vernal pool where the dead ones were found. They were found up and down the woodland trails, making their migration over the land to their breeding pools. And not just the salamanders, wood frogs and spring peepers were also plentiful. And oddly, a handful of these little darkling beetles. Ambystoma species are large and slow-moving, especially across the land. They just freeze in their tracks when they come across a potential threat. It is probably a better bet to hope that they blend in, or those aposematic spots ward off any would-be predators. It is amazing that a completely carnivorous creature can be so sluggish. This must limit their diet to other slow-moving or stationary animals, but I get there's plenty of insect larvae and eggs underground that fit this description. The far swamp was a breeding frenzy that night. The peepers were so noisy, it almost hurt my ears. Yellow-spotted salamanders were swimming in and out of breeding masses. They would swim out of the weeds and join the congregation, and then return back to the weeds. Many of the groupings were 8 or 10 individuals, but it was hard to film them underneath the water at night. I did notice a wood frog trying to breed one of the salamanders. I imagine they emit a pheromone similar to that of the wood frogs, and it got confused. I did come across a YouTube video of several wood frogs trying to breed a yellow-spotted salamander, although the video was labeled tiger salamander. When I first witnessed it, I thought it was trying to kill or drown or eat the salamander. Later, it did get it turned around and had it in its amplexus. The bulge at the base of the salamander's tail is probably sperm packets that it will release into the water, and later a female will lay her eggs near the sperm packet. I'm not sure if this is the same wood frog or not, but it's certainly bent on breeding this salamander. I'm not sure how long this all lasted. It started to pick up around 8:30, and I was out till about 12:30, so a good 4 hours, but I left for another location, which I regretted the next day. Next year, I'll stay the whole time at the swamp. I assume the same thing happened the following night, although I didn't go out, but then the temperatures dropped, and no amphibians for about a week. Then, one nice afternoon, the vernal pond was loaded again with wood frogs. This month, many of the birds have returned. We've had hundreds, in some cases thousands of blackbirds, mostly redwings and grackles, with a few brown-headed cowbirds in the mix, and Matt's even sighted a few rusty blackbirds. We've had purple finches hanging around in the Norway spruces in the parking lot. The eastern towhees are back in town. And the tree sparrows are still here, but should be leaving soon. And we've seen a return of most of our waterfowl. There's also been an increase in raptors, including this redtail, who is very recognizable due to his odd coloration, and we've seen him multiple days in a row. And although this isn't much of a view, our first ever common moorhen. We've also had a number of pine siskin flocks coming through, although most of this video was taken up north in the Adirondack Mountains. They are members of the finch family and use their pointy beaks to forage on pine nuts inside of pine cones. They seem to really prefer tamarack trees. They look a lot like goldfinches, with pointier bills and streaking on the chest. Their vocalizations are also similar to that as a goldfinch, but a bit more harsh. They almost remind me of what a goldfinch might sound like if it were robotic. These finches were found on the sanctuary, and they're quite loud for only a group of maybe 15 to 20 of them. Most of the avian excitement this month came from the dozens of kinglets that stopped in. It was mostly golden crowns, but we did have a few ruby-crowned kinglets as well. Both species are extremely energetic, rarely slowing down to take a rest. Usually, they're foraging higher up in the trees and are hard to get a good look at, but the cold weather has brought them closer to the ground. Kinglets are constantly foraging for insects, usually in the crevices of tree bark and beneath the leaves on the ground, and in this case, they are taking midge flies from near the surface of the water. This behavior is known as hawking. It's typical of flycatchers and warblers, but not usually thought of as a behavior of kinglets. Kinglets of both species are small yet plump birds. Both are a yellowish, kind of grayish color with wing bars. Golden crowns are easily distinguished from ruby crowns though, because the golden crowns have that fiery golden crown. They also have that black line lining their golden crown and some stripes on the face. Here is a ruby crown kinglet. Notice the ruby crown and the lack of facial markings other than the bright white eye ring. Sometimes winter wrens can be found following the flocks of kinglets, and they seldom sit still any longer. Notice the reddish brown of the winter wren, and the white eye stripe, and the tail that's almost always held in the upright position. Phoebes have also returned in a big way. Phoebes are members of the flycatcher family, and that's what they do, catch flies all day long. They line the beaver ponds and are constantly foraging for aerial insects.